Welcome to another episode of Agency Automators. Today, we're taking it back to where we started. We're super lucky to have Hamlet Batista, everybody's favorite Python guru, who's doing some of the most exciting, innovative work in Python, machine learning, natural language generation, natural language processing, and SEO. So many of us look up to you, and we're just so stoked to have you back again. Of course, I'm hyper stoked to have Jordan Chu, co-host, co-founder of Agency Automators, who just got married last weekend. Show off the ring.
Bam,
Bam!
bam.
Super exciting. Hamlet, tell us about the roller coaster that you've had this year.
This year only, right?
Just going back
And I think,
the past 12 months.
yeah, I think more, yeah. I mean, everybody has been on a roller coaster just with everything that's happening with the pandemic, and then all the protests and then we had a hurricane, like it's like anything that can happen, anything bad that can happen is happening.
Yeah.
The Murphy law, if something is happen it's gonna happen. Right?
Yeah.
So that's yeah, no, it's been insane. It's and I like to use this analogy. It's like you're in a theme park, and you think you're jumping into a merry-go-round, and then you find out I took the wrong one. Now in the Kindakai is the tallest roller coaster, and then you just figure out when you're going in the first drop.
Yeah.
Wow, I thought it was in the merry-go-round, and it's completely out. You didn't even expect this will get this crazy, right?
Yeah.
So so it's been intense, right? It's been for us. We took like everybody in the May, hit. Everybody was uncertain of what was going to happen, and then everybody now going online.
Yep.
Everybody transforming digitally. We're seeing massive demand. It's incredible. It's crazy. So it's just scrambling to organize and be able to realize the opportunities that are coming. And this Python, I think we had the recording last April. I didn't have any visibility back then. I had no. It's crazy to think that I had less than 1,000. Yeah, I had like 600 followers by that time.
Wow.
And 10 times, now, right? Just in a year later, 10x your visibility.
Wow.
Nobody knew about what I was doing, or whether Python or whether we could do whatever. It's incredible that you can accomplish so much in such little time. And it comes back to riding a wave. So I spoke at Inbound last year.
Mm-hmm.
You're very fortunate. I'm speaking again. I already recorded my session for that. It's Python. Both sessions have been Python. And I presented that idea of when you try to gain visibility, as marketers, we need that to get attention to our cause, our business, whatever we're doing. And the traditional approach of just, one at a time and doing things, slowly, and it's one way to do it. It's a lot of the way that most businesses do it. I say, wow, this crazy way of tapping into a movement, driving a wave of something that is already happening, that is just growing like crazy, which Python is. Python is not. I'm not, I didn't raise my visibility so fast because it's Hamlet Batista, or, it's because Python is growing like crazy. Data science growing like crazy. Natural language, all those are really strong and big trends that are growing exponentially. And I'm just tapping into those waves. And the realization that this was not just going to be within the scientific community and academia. I saw this taking over everywhere. And I said, look, it's going to happen at some point in our industry. This is something I enjoy, something that it's motivating, and I love doing that stuff. And also, I come up with all these ideas and I don't have, it will drive nuts my team trying to chase all of them and giving them out. We're building a reputation and also empowering other companies, other teams. I'm excited to see, people have been built businesses and tools out of the articles that I've published. And it's been, exciting for me. Otherwise you'll say, oh, they're taking my ideas, stuff like that. No, I want my community to be better. I don't want things to be stuck in the past where everything is just about checking, rankings and pixel rankings, stuff like, it's a lot more. That's still valuable, but it's a lot more stuff that could be done and could happen and things that could be more exciting. And it's been really fun to be able to show that, right? Programming a lot of different languages.
Yeah.
I go back to Python because I can understand what I did. I'm not a professional programmer. I'm not coding all the time, although it might seem like it is because of my publishing schedule.
Yep.
But I think being able to go back and see, oh, I did this, this article that I wrote last year, and a lot of times it's different topics because I have I have diverse interests. I like to learn a lot about a lot of different things.
Yep.
And sometimes that's the only time that I play with that. I don't touch it again. For example, that was the article with the talk we did last year about the automating the Euro inspection.
Yep.
I haven't touched that in months. I haven't played with that type of work in months.
Mm.
But then I'll go back and I say, wow, I can understand what I was doing. I can see exactly what it is. And a lot of things that I've been doing, I pull information. Oh, I remember I did this for this webinar or this article, this talk. Let me take that and adapt it. And that is also helping me publish at a faster pace because I can plug in things that I've done, or even ideas that I have. Oh, I can solve this in this way. I can pull something I did here for that. And as I'm a product leader in my company. I drive the product vision. That is very valuable because I can see what's going, what's possible, and I can feed that back and prototype ideas. Hey, look, you guys gonna be able to do this. Here's a prototype I put together for you to follow, right? So there is a lot of value for me to do it, and also the feedback. So I see whether people are getting excited or they're enjoying it, and so this seems like people like it. This might be useful to build ourselves, put it in a product. It's great. So, in talking about the conflicts, and that's something I touched in this article, we're going to be covering the article I published today. So I had a conversation with Elias Davis from the media supermarket, and he has a Python library for SEOs and paid search people. It's called Advert Tools. Really cool. And I used it. And he said, look, I have this practice when I'm writing the code, I print for third-party libraries, I print the version number. I said, wow, that's a really cool, great idea because when they don't work, at least I know what version worked. And then if I wanted to make it work quickly, I just have to install that version. So I'll make sure that it works because I installed that version. And then later try to figure out how to make it work with the latest one. So that's really cool and practical. But I'm going to try to make a habit of doing that with the future articles so that people start facing less issues like you mentioned when playing with the different tools and articles.
So Hamlet,
and talking about why that happens. I'm sorry, Jordan.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and talking about why that happens is that third-party libraries, there is no like a standardization in backwards compatibility.
Yep.
That professional software, they try to provide backwards compatibility, like Excel. They put a lot of effort in making sure that it works with really old Excel files. That's a significant investment on time and effort. I think open source tools, they're not as strict on that quality control, making sure that the code will still work with the latest, versions. So that's what's happening, right?
I have a standard question that I'm hoping we get to ask. Well, I'm just going to ask it. My favorite new question that we've been asking everybody is, how do you solve problems? I want to know how you think, because the decision making and the way that we creatively solve problems is what makes us innovative and is the heart of how we work. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe about how coding fits into how you think and solve problems?
Yeah, and I can talk a lot about it because, I'm probably 80% problem solver. That's what I see all my work.
Yeah.
As I approach it from an engineering perspective, but everything when I'm approach operations, sales, hiring, product, marketing, everything, I look at it as a problem, and I try to solve it because I enjoy solving problems, and I see problems as puzzles. Just think, but feel like as a puzzle, right? So you're trying to have a bunch of pieces trying to solve a puzzle. Maybe the puzzle is partially completed. How do you solve a puzzle? Very simple. That's the idea. You break it into pieces. If it's a lot of times problems are not broken down in pieces like a puzzle, right? So the first thing is break it down in pieces. That logically you said, okay, if I broke down this problem into this, 10 different steps, abstract steps, that I think if I solve this, I can get to the solution. That's the first step. And I do this so much that it's natural. It comes, natural, right? And I'll explain how that maps into coding, right? Break it down into pieces. And then every piece, you're going to try multiple ways to address that piece. You said, okay, that piece is going to get this information in and should deliver this out, right? So that's how you look at the problem. Oh, here's the big problem. Break it down. 5 steps, five sub problems. The solution to this problem should be giving me this. The solution to this, I know what should be the output of each piece, at least in an abstract way. And then I start trying different approaches for each one. Tried it. Okay, let me try this. Didn't work. Okay. And you tried a few different ideas. You might have ideas about how to do them, or you have to research. Okay, I know that I need to do this, but I don't know how to do it. Let me search, find how somebody else solved it, or something very interesting. Let me look at how other companies are solving the problem and become customers, become prospects, and see how they solve that problem by becoming part of their, or their flow. Oh, I see how they solve the problem. That's something I want to try. And you can do that with multiple companies. We actually do that. And you do that for every problem. Once you break down every piece, you find one or more ways that it can address individually. Then now you put everything together because you tested each part individually, and they work individually, and now the work of putting them all together to work is actually simple. And that's the approach. And if you think about it, a lot of really interesting problems. And then we take it a step further, because if you look at some of the solutions that I published, they are very disconnected in terms of, they're not within one domain. You say, wow, I solved this problem, but I took steps from different industries. I'm not just solving a problem with the tools that we know in SEO. I'm solving problems with tools outside of the SEO realm. And that's where you become really innovative, because people, wow, how do you even come up with that? How do you even connect all this stuff so unrelated, right? And that's kind of like where you find really, stuff that sets you apart, because nobody's doing that, right? And, nobody has, the inclination to do it, wouldn't do it, and it helps you stand out, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You're
exactly.
saying this stuff that totally aligns with how we think.
How do you do that, right? How do you come up with, the last article before the one today, I'm connecting ideas from front-end development, right? Computer vision. I think I also added, browser automation as well. Mm-hmm. Image processing. A lot of different, realms. There's wow, I put all this stuff together, put it in a blender, and now come up with this crazy beautiful theory, and it actually works. And you go, wow, how did that come up? Right. And that's the part that gets me excited, right? So that's where, that is what I say, wow, this is so beautiful. I dreamed this up and I made it happen. Tried it, and wow, that's really exciting, I tell you, right? So how do you do that? It's because you have to get out of your comfort zone and just not just be stuck learning about the same things. Like everybody's just learning about the same things. Get far more curious. So I'm really curious and I enjoy learning from a lot of different industries. So I spend time with computer vision experts, natural language processing, security experts, IT professionals, lawyers, marketers. So, and that's one of the reasons why I also enjoy owning my business, being a business owner, is I get to, do whatever role I want. I get to enjoy and talk and interact with whoever. I'm not constrained. Like, a few times that I had a job, this is what you have to do. This is what you're not getting, and you're siloed.
Yep.
So although it's great to say, oh, I'm working for this big, huge, company, but the bigger the company, the more siloed your expertise, the less exposure you have. And that also opens opportunities to work with them because that's the teams between different silos that don't talk to each other. You don't have visibility how they're solving problems. You own a business, you're able to see all that stuff. You're able to take information and ideas. I take ideas from paid search, from email marketing, from security industry, from performance, and from different industries. You see the breadth of the topics that I cover. Page speed, security, automation, browser automation, all this. It's not just coincidence. It's just that I really enjoy, spending time in different realms and capture, their patterns, their success patterns, right? How do these people, solve problems, right? How do they, address them? Copywriters, right? And what I've done, every year I try to learn something new. I challenge myself, I'm going to learn about this, right? So I'm going to learn about, I'll learn about copywriting, paid search. It's not just, performance. I've been trying to, this year focusing on performance, learn more about performance. Last year it was more in NLP. The year before I was learning deep learning. So every year I challenge myself. I want to really get deep into one area in my free time that, I don't necessarily see the practical benefit right away for what I'm doing, but I know that eventually I'll find something useful for it. And that's what's happening.
Super cool. So when you were talking about how you solve problems, when we were pitching for agency automators, what you were saying aligns almost, not quite word for word, but totally paraphrased with how we approach automation. You take a process, break it into its micro steps, address each one, try and understand if it's automatable, and then automate from the micro to the macro, hoping that you could get the whole process. That's assuming you answer the question up front, is this something that we want to automate? Does it make sense to automate it? Is a good application for it or not? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm feeling like we should jump into your article because you just dropped it, I think today, right? This morning at 9 a.m. Eastern?
Yeah.
With RankSense. Have you been able to take any of your learnings and turn it into product, or is it mainly beneficial in growing like your social?
Yeah, no, it's I think the biggest benefit is been my company because it's what I've been doing is building social proof. So if you think about it, a lot of times startups and businesses, they don't really, and I had that conversation. I said, look, you had these conversations that you think in books and everybody tells you that this is how you follow a sales process. Oh, somebody says express interest, you present, and then, at some point they buy it. But what happens in that black box, this, window when you don't know after you present what you want to say and you discuss prices, is what happened after that, between that, and they decide to become a customer. And I had that theory that what happens is, which what makes sense is what I would do myself, is the due diligence phase of learning whether they want to work with you. And that's not just, customers, but also hires, people or partners. You have people that you want to, the success of a business, you need employees that are great, talented. You need partners that can also help you with distribution. And you need customers. All of them, especially the best ones, the ones that you have, the ones that you want, are not just going to take your word for it. They're not going to take your word that what you're promising they're going to get. You know, that's the fact. And there's not a lot of talking about that. And what's happening is that all this stuff that I've been doing, the closing rates on customers, on employees, and partnerships, like crazy, growing like this.
Yeah.
A lot faster. That's how you measure it. I said, look, talk to 5 people before I would close, 1. Now, 50, 60, we're seeing 66 and 70%, 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people deciding to do business or deciding to work with us, partners or customers or employees, right? And a lot of them, and let me tell you, this is the craziest thing. I've never seen this. Some of them have actually written I have been so busy that I haven't been able to keep up with, I'm going to, put the time because the proposal is too customized. They put the proposal together and say, here, fill in the blanks. Where do you hear that?
Never.
Customer partnership, that they actually write the proposal for you. So that's the kind of desire or people wanting to work with you that only with having really, really strong evidence that you can deliver only happens, So then the lesson that I learned is that you have to invest time in things that are hard to measure. Don't just assume because you can measure this, that you're doing this promotion and you can measure directly, I got X number of, contacts with these customers, whatever, that's the only thing you should be investing your time. You should be investing time as well in things that are hard to measure, like trust, reputation, and thought leadership and stuff like that. It's very, very, very important to measure that as well, because even though you don't see it, and especially because there is a lag between when you do things, and when that turns into, business, benefits for you that you can measure. Like, for example, I get people talking, oh, how do you hear me? I'm glad, I want to work with you, a big company, right? But how do you hear from me? Oh, I hear you talk like 6 months ago or from, and I've been following you since, right? So they say it, but that's not enough for them to say, yeah, we want to work with you. They want to see consistency. They don't tell me that, but it makes sense. You don't build credit overnight. You build credit, you build reputation over time with consistency, making sure that you're always consistently exceptional, providing exceptional work. Wow, I want to work with this person or this company or this team because they are consistent. They get me what I want and they always do it.
Are you manual on Twitter or are you automated on Twitter at all? Because it feels very manual.
No, it's manual. Why? That's how we work. That's why it works.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why it works. Yeah, our company handle that schedule. So they will schedule. There's a content plan and stuff like that. But my stuff in Twitter is not about that. It's about the community and engaging and the learning.
Yep.
So it's not for the automated and schedule content stuff. We have the company handle, which is good for that. This is an article that I published today. I wanted to do an introduction to NLP, and I wanted to do something really interesting so that people are excited to try it, which is building a knowledge graph from scratch. So we talk a lot about the knowledge graph in Google and the knowledge graph. But what is it? How do you build one? How do you use one? And I thought it was really also interesting for me to learn about the topic. That article includes a notebook. I'll walk you through the notebook as well. So I will show you what the article, a brief summary of what it is. So basically what I did is, this is what it looks like, one example of the knowledge graph. So I built a, script tool, where you want to call a notebook. You can input an XML sitemap and including an index, it will extract all the URLs from the sitemap. We filter them by dates. The sitemap has the last modification time. We said, okay, I only want, and I used it to extract articles from SEJ. So I extracted articles from SEJ, and out of all the articles, I said, I only want the ones from this year, from 2020. But you think how that can be really interesting? Because I said, look, what if I want to do this only before the pandemic and do a comparison of what were the things that we were covering before the whole situation happened and after, right? It's really interesting. And we can do this on any site, not just SEJ. And this is what the knowledge graph is. It's a very powerful concept where you essentially represent facts. And you represent them by connecting subjects and objects. You said, okay, Google, this one is, the relationship is launches. So subject, Google launched a SEOs coronavirus, page, right? And Hulu launched an advertising platform. Hulu launched a marketing o'clock podcast. And look how powerful that is, that I'm able to gather facts from any site, any industry, automatically. This is automatically doing this. I'll show you that. So essentially, it's a great way to do topic research. So you want to find a site that is really popular. Oh, let me learn what are the topics that they're covering. Or I want to look at trending topics. What is the stuff that is trending? So it's really powerful stuff that you can use for this. And you can find all the relationships automatically as well, right? And this notebook is something that, is linked at the end of the article. I'm going to walk you through that so you see how that works. Let me see how that. So what you want to do first is make a copy, save it to your Google Drive. So this part, what we do first is we install an amazing library from Elias called Advert Tools that downloads all the signups for us. And for me, that was really interesting concept, being able to extract information and knowledge graph, not from the content on the pages. Think about it. I'm not scraping the content on the pages to build the knowledge graphs. I'm scraping the content from the URLs. So I'm turning the URLs into headlines. And there's logs in the URLs. I'm pulling them, turning them into headlines and using the headlines. And then from the headlines, I extract the entities in the headlines, right? And not only the entities, like Google, Hulu, but also the relationship between entities. So I said this entity is doing this to this other entity, right? Which is really powerful. And that's what I'm doing that automatically. And then you see, I'm able to find a number of relationships. So I found these were the relationships, launches, on, makes, adds, improve, explains, optimize. Let's get Google, use some of them are not perfect and we can ignore them. Introduces, there's a lot of them are really powerful. And then I showed some examples of what they look like here. This what introduces new. Google Ads.
Hamlet, do you
introduces
find
Google.
quick?
Yeah, right.
Do you find that just using the URLs to extract entities misses like potential entities instead of going the content route? That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but these were more for first of all, this is going to be faster and it's going to give you access to a lot more diversity than pulling the content from if you're pulling the content, it's going to take you more time, more effort, more resources, and you probably have to hit some limit in how many sites you can evaluate with this approach versus here, right? I'm able to do it at scale with thousands really quickly in minutes. I can do thousands. I can do hundreds of thousands in hours. Versus, if you're doing the content route side, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to take, multiples longer. Right. But yeah, you could do it with the content as well, but it's going to be, and then you're going to have to do more filtering on the content because you have to be finding less useful information. So even if you're doing the content, I would probably create a summary of the page and do the analysis on the summary versus the full text.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. So look at this one, reveals, right? How search behavior leads to the pandemic. Look at that. Special announcements, right? Google reveals growing search results. Look at this one, explains. Google explains how to search content, improve small businesses rankings, skyscraper content. Look at that, all that stuff. So this, when I run the notebook, you're gonna get a form at the end that you can just play with the different relations. This is what I show you. So I run this and show you the output first, and then we can dive it into the details, right? Here you can put the sitemap using SEJ. Elias run it on Moz as well. Thought that was really interesting. Let me do it with Moz, right? So we play with Moz. Let's use the blog. This is what you're gonna do. Just change it to your specific, and then this is gonna download the signups. So this is I haven't tried it with them, right? Look how cool this tool is. Not just fetching the main, it's pulling all the different signups. Local campaign pages, API product about, announcements, check out the million free tools. Cool change. Really cool, right?
Is this part of, did you get the idea for this project as part of that Twitter conversation between you and David Sotomano and John Murch about
No, this came,
one line of code?
No, this came from my conversation. I had a webinar with Elias from AdverTools.
Yep.
And yeah, when I saw the capabilities of his tool, and then we saw that we can actually process URLs, and I said, wow, I see how I can use this, right? Look at this. So I have 600 entries from Moz, right? For, the pages here that we downloaded. So we downloaded the sitemaps and all the URLs within the sitemaps. And you see that it includes the sitemap where it was found and all the different pages, right? So now I want to say that I only want the URLs from this year. Look at that. So that's 351 pages that have been updated this year. This is the data from the sitemap.
Are either of you surprised? Are either of you surprised that they haven't updated more content this year?
Well, this was their pages, not their blog.
I don't think that Moz is like, SEJ that they will be publishing with that high velocity frequency, right?
Yeah.
Which is a news publication.
Yep.
Right. So then what I do here is I save them to a CSV. That's optional, right? I like to do that.
Yep.
Now let's look at how do I extract the headlines from the themes. And I'll use one example from this, right? Measuring and tracking success. This changes URLs from SEJ to, right? And then I'm gonna use URL parse. So library in Python, see it breaks down scheme, HTTPS, the host, and the path. There are no queries and fragments, right? Now I want to split the path. Look at that. Beginner's Guide to SEO Measuring and Tracking Success, just by removing the slash and the dashes, right?
Hamlet, I have a question. Do you have a recommendation on minimum site size in order for this to work?
No. I mean, you tried it. I mean, I haven't tried with that. Yeah. I don't think you, yeah, think a few 100 pages or whatever. I shouldn't have one page. Definitely a site with 1 or 5 pages, probably not the best. Right.
Right.
And then this I did with SEJ, which was to exclude author pages, you know, probably not useful, not necessarily on, but look at that. So essentially this goes back to what I was telling you, right? How do I get the headline from a URL? That's what I did. I broke it in pieces, tried every idea separately, right? You see that I tried it separately, every idea, tested that it works. And now that I tested that it works, I created a function that essentially combines all these steps that I tested manually, right? Look at that. I tested all that stuff. Now I encapsulated it in a function. And now that function that I tested in one URL, I can scale it across all of the URLs. Now I don't have to manually do that work for every URL because I generalized the solution. And that's where you see how coding is so cool in terms of I test things, 1 or 2 things, and then I see, wow, that worked great. And this is, yeah, I load the URL this is what I saved. And now I'm going to create a column, right? This is the URLs, most URLs. And now I'm going to add that column with the headlines. See? So I'm applying that get headline to all the URLs. And I assign it to the data frame with this. So I kept it really simple. So it's very easy to see how you're breaking it down. So you see now I'm taking a sitemap that didn't have headlines. And now I included the headlines. Look at that.
The thing that I took away when I read through the article and also listening to you talk about it now is how this could be modified a little bit to do like a URL quality audit because I saw this tool working amazing for a website where an SEO is like carefully crafting every URL. But there's so many websites that are just garbage in how they generate URLs, and modifying this slightly so that you could know if they have good URL templating in place or not for SEO.
Yeah. No, that's what I like to be able to show the building blocks, because that allows you to adjust this to other use cases that I haven't considered, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. So look what I did here. What I did is I combined all the headlines into one document, put everything in one document, and you'll see what I'm going to do is really cool. So you're going to see, right, that this is where we get to the interesting part. Okay, I got the headlines now. Now we get to the NLP, right? How do I find entities? There's this library called Spacey that we can use for that to see how powerful it is, right? So Spacey, I'm gonna load some embeddings in English from Spacey, and I'm gonna convert that text that I combined, right? Hopefully finds a lot of entities into a Spacey document. And now I'm gonna try to visualize the entities. Look at that.
So Hamlet, why did you go with Spacey versus say Watson or Google's API?
Because I don't have to pay for those. I don't have to make external requests.
Okay.
Everything is here. It's fast. You see, it was really fast, and it's the same thing. You see, the other thing that I get that I don't get with the Watson or Google is that I can adjust spacey accuracy by training it and giving more custom, entities that I create myself. Right. So it gives me more flexibility. You could do that with Google with AutoML as well, but you have to do code because you have to write and create the training data and all that stuff. So you're already writing code here, better just stay here for now. Right.
Cool.
But look at that, right? Identifying the entities, color coded in organization. Look at that. Created the entities. Time, 1 hour. Yeah. Academy. Yeah, look at that. It's really cool, right? So I don't know that we're gonna get enough, as many as we for SCJ, but let's see if it works out. Right. So then I have these entities that I pull. Now we're gonna get to the building a knowledge graph. But you see, with a few steps, now I got entities. Now I got NLP, right? And now let me show you how this is the more exciting part, which is we're trying to process the sentences and try to understand the grammatical rules of the sentences. This is also Spacey doing that for us. Beginners, you see the subject, auxiliary, scum, subject, object, all that stuff. That's where we're trying to identify the elements from the sentence that we want to extract because they are the subject, the object, and the relationship. And for that, we're going to use some Spacey for that. Okay. A rules matcher. So we're going to create custom rules to do the extraction. And we're going to use a library to visualize the graph, the nodes. Right. So the main idea is the nodes. This we borrow this function from a data scientist that wrote an article about it. So we don't have to write that from scratch. It could be done, but they already did it, right? Pratik Joshi, he wrote a couple of sentences. It's a lot of tutorials about how to build a knowledge graph. Entities, relationships. We already wrote the code for that. Here it is. And the main idea is that there is grammatical rules that you have to consider because maybe an entity is not just one word, but more than one, because there is also modifiers to the noun. So you have the noun, you have modifiers, so you have to account for them, detect them, and combine them. And this does all that stuff, right? So let's look at, you see, for example, here, it's getting the film hat 200 pounds, subject and object. You're testing it, right?
You
Now
guys
let's see
keep
how it
going.
looks.
I'm going to be right back. Keep going. This is amazing.
Yeah, and look here. Now I run it on all the sentences that we extracted from the Moss headlines. Look at that.
Huh.
Some of them are blank, and we're going to ignore them. Right? Now that I have the code for that, I'm going to build a list with all the entity pairs. That's where we use it to TQM. TQM is just basically showing a progress bar for what you're doing. So it's a lengthy process. And let's see the 10.
So this
relation.
removed all of the kind of duplicates, cleaned it up a little, essentially, right?
This is just mainly just extracting what's important.
Okay.
The subject and the object from the sentences. It's not going to get 100%, but it gets close, right? Now our hypothesis is that the predicate is the main verb in the sentence, right? And that's where we take this other function from that data scientist, and you see he's able to get the relationship between John and the task. You see the relationship is that he completed it, right? So essentially you're thinking that we're extracting facts. We're extracting facts. This happened this, right? This did this, right? This, right? So now I'm going to get the relationships. And I'm skipping empty sentences like I did before as well. Right? Length should be greater than 0. Now I have the entity pairs, right? Why did I print? No, that's the entity pairs. And I want to print the relationships. Look at that. How it works, right? Change, guide, you said. So they have some relation. Let's see how it's going to look. So now I want to see the top relationships. Look at the top relationships. Started, walkthroughs, studies, about videos, solutions, overview, keywords, explorer, guide on, FAQs, research, tags. All of them are one. So you see, so the larger the site, the more information, the more interesting this is going to become, right? So probably just repeat this with this search engine line, search engine watch. It's going to be really interesting. Right, we'll look at that. So we're going to look at this one and start it. Walkthroughs, studies, right? It's really cool. So now let's build a graph. Let's see what the graph looks like. Any questions so far?
No, this is really interesting. Like when I was going through the article, and I think I messaged Noah about this, I just started thinking of ideas on applications. So I'm gonna have questions for you after.
A lot. Yeah, it's a lot of applications. So look at this, right? So we're gonna create a list with the source entities and an equivalent list with the targets, right? And that's we're gonna pass that dictionary with those, and we're also gonna pass the relationships to a data. We're gonna build a data frame with this, right? So I'm gonna create this and make a change here so we can see how the data frame that we feed into the knowledge graph looks like. Let's see what happened. Oh, I thought I copied it. Why is my keyword doing something different than what I'm asking? So look at the, right? That is what we're feeding the visualization library. Source, target, edge. Right.
Is the
so
edge
now this is
the connector between the subject and the object? Okay.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
And then I'm gonna build the graph here from pandas, edge list, and then I'm gonna create the graph. And then I'm gonna visualize it. And it's gonna visualize a monster. Right. Look at that. Well, this one is less scary than the one we did for SJ, but look, it's connecting a bunch of relationships.
And that's a cluster. That's like in the middle. That's a cluster of nodes, right? Not a single node.
Yeah, but I am. That's not something. That's just to show you what it does, but it's not particularly useful. What I'm going to do is, now that I see, I'm going to package this into a function where I'm making the target variable. So you see the edge. I'm changing the edge relationship, specifying that as a parameter that I pass, right? So that I can filter. So look at that. So now I'm gonna be able to change the graph, visualize just specific relationships that I'm interested in. I'm gonna visualize start it, and then walkthroughs, then studies. Look at that. So look how easy, how fast you could understand Moses, content. Start it. Look at that. See, so you look at the arrows: help, start a pro dashboard, pro campaign setup, pro insights, academy building issues, help most academy, started an SEO essential certificate.
Can you plug in guide instead of started? That seemed like a really...
one of the relationships, right? So you
wasn't
have...
that one of the edges?
That's one of the relationships.
Sorry. Just kidding.
Walkthroughs.
Okay.
There's the walkthroughs. And studies, right? Those are the big ones, right? Well, but let me show you that I actually have a form. Oh, but that form is not going to work for Moz. It's just that one's for SCJ. So look at this. Walkthroughs. Help pro walkthrough demos Moz. Pro walkthroughs. Demos pro. Just start seeing that. Really cool stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So look at this. Studies, right? So what was this one? Reveals. Case studies. You see, line audio. Self e-commerce, right? So yeah, so that's the idea. And this, we can create a form. See if I show the top 50. Yeah. It's not as much data as SCJ, right? But it's interesting.
Hamlet, can you scroll up a little bit to the cell above where you did the :50? What does that represent, the :50?
No, I just wanted to the top 50.
Oh, top 50. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had put it in 100, it would have been the top 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the top 10, you see, you can do that.
Cool.
Huh.
Right. This one. Right. And then the idea is that I can turn this into a option list, mm-hmm. so that you can run this. Right. Let me show you how you do that. So you can build a simple tool here. See. Yeah. Yeah, I needed a faster way to do this.
Can't you just say the relation list or whatever the name of the variable is in the cell above?
No, because this is a comment. It's a parameter. It's a comment that you pass.
Yeah.
But art. What is art? Oh, I don't know what art.
Does oh
How art came up there. Oh, it's no. I had to put help. Yeah, that should do it.
Okay.
So look at that help. Yeah, my keyword is repeating text for some reason, but look at that. Right. Look at that.
Huh. Huh.
That is more, comprehensive, right? So yeah, so you look at help, look at learn, and now you just select the pull down. How cool is that? Right.
That's really cool. Huh.
and that's all
Yeah.
just from the URLs.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. Look at that. Oh, you were asking for guide? Look at guide.
Yeah,
Look at that.
it's gonna be massive. Oh,
Look at that. Beginner, success, keyword search, how search engines, how research works, page SEO, studies. So it's just changing.
so
The one that we did, walkthroughs, you were going to say?
I was gonna say this is super cool, and when I go to my favorite new question or statement, so what? I see this as the foundation of learning how to build a knowledge graph for a website, and that's a much more complex problem to solve. But
No. The application is you're doing, say you're doing content research. You
yeah,
want to know, right? Because what this becomes interesting when you said, okay, I'm going to just look at a sign up with the latest articles that they published this week. So you want to find trending topics. You want to combine sign ups from different news people in the same industry. So you say, okay, I'm going to look at the sign maps from SEJ, all the top publications in the last couple of days. What are they talking about? Boom, you do this and you see that, right? The topic that is trend, you want to see trending topics. You get a new client in a different industry, you know a lot about it, you can research it. Essentially researching what is the main facts. You can research facts from an industry about people, about, places, companies, because you're using entities, right? It's very powerful. This is another way that you can do competitive research, market research, right? And yeah, and this is just one simple application that you got for
The
this.
first
But
thing that came to mind for me was internal linking and content hubs as well, because you're
yeah,
clustering very similar
yeah.
entities.
So for example, exactly. So for example, instead of the URLs, you could use the anchor text of internal links. Think about that. That's another thing you can do. You just, oh, let me scrape this site with Screaming Frog and export the internal links anchor text, right? See what they say, right? Or let me just export. If it's an e-commerce site, I want to export the the product names or the links from the products or the links from the categories to the products. A lot of stuff you can do with this. But for this one, just take an assignment, right, and turn it into right into information. Look how without we knowing anything about Moss, right, man, we don't know anything, and we're easily able to understand, what are the topics that they're covering, just we're looking at the assignment. You
I dig
see,
it.
help local. I'm
One
sorry.
of your major areas of expertise is e-commerce. How how do you approach e-commerce if let's say you're working with like I don't know, the creators of Fortnite or whatever just something massive, and you take on a new e-commerce client, how do you like to work in terms of building out a plan for them? What do you like to tackle first? Do you go straight to tech SEO and deal with all the tech problems, or do you focus on content, or how do you like to approach those types of projects?
Yeah, so the larger the large companies, they have a specific pain points. So you're not just gonna go here, oh, let me try to figure out what I'm gonna do for. That's not the way that it works with large organizations.
Mm-hmm.
They already have identified pain points that they want to address. And they're trying to bring out external help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to bring a tool vendor, they want to bring, professional services. They say, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Or SEO is, I'm getting some of these, companies reaching out, look, the CEO of a public company is asking about SEO, is talking to my VP, to my director, and asking about what is our plan with SEO. The CEO of the company, of a big public company, right? And for them, it's about catching up. A lot of, especially the type of company is in e-commerce. We work a lot with manufacturers. Is this stuff called digital transformation, which is everybody's involved in that. Is they were too obsessed with the traditional way of doing business, and now they say, wow, we have to really adopt digital. We have to get into this digital stuff. And it's a massive effort with a lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of things, and you're just one piece of the puzzle. So you said, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is where we think you can fit in, because never it is as one simple thing. It's an overarching project or initiative that they're trying to accomplish, and they're trying to put together a bunch of different people internally and outside to make it happen, right? And you said, okay, out of all the stuff you're mentioning, it's the other way around. This is where I think we can add value, right? We have this expertise on the technical side, on the innovation and automation. So a lot of it is related to automation. How do you get stuff done faster, fewer resources? How do you tap into the data that you have and find, opportunities to speed up? Business speed is always valuable. So business always being able to do something faster, because it saves opportunity costs, and especially if you can eliminate hours. So in big enterprises are about saving hours, because hours is expensive. They don't do things because it will, oh, I know we have these 100,000 descriptions that don't exist. We can afford to do that project. Something as simple as say, oh, but we could do it if you were using WordPress, you put this plugin and no. They said, we don't use WordPress. We use Drupal. We use they said, look, we can't afford to manually do all that stuff, because we don't even know upfront. It's going to cost millions of dollars. We don't even know if it's going to be worth it. So that's where you said, look, we could take a list, make a business case, a pilot. Let me show you with 10,000, with a fraction of the cost, show you the output of that, right? Prove the case, and then we can do the rest at a fraction that would cost you to do it manually. So that's how you approach this big company. It's just a sliver of a problem with a niche that you have.
That speaks to the value of rank sense, doesn't it? I mean, so you can prove a case to one of your retainer clients, and then you can scale out the solution based on the test results using a tool like RankSense.
Yeah, so we generally that's why they work with us, because we can show them, right? And we work with a number of agencies as well, right? We don't have the scale or the capability to handle every single client, right? So we have a bunch of agencies that do it. They use it with their clients, and it's about proving out. Say, look, we think this is going to be valuable with RankSense. We can do it. We can try it in scale, prove it out, and then get the buy-in to roll it out, right? Mm-hmm. And all the things that are more ongoing, which is managing SEO like paid search. That's the part that our partners love more, because a lot of agencies, they do both paid search and SEO for clients, and being able to offer a turnkey solution that they're not just saying, oh, here's my recommendations, do them. But no, they're responsible for not just providing the recommendations, they're also responsible for the outcome of the recommendations. So they're essentially managing the client on the SEO channel the same way that they'll manage it on paid search, which is not just, this is what we're going to do. We do it for you, and we show you the outcome of these changes that we're making. And also, in a lot of big companies, paid search and SEO teams are siloed, so they don't talk to each other. But if they're working with a third-party agency, the agency has far more flexibility. They can learn from the paid side and say, hey, look, this idea, this messaging is working. Let's try this in SEO. It's really cool stuff.
Hamlet, this has
Sounds
been
good.
amazing. I'm just
Yeah,
looking.
no, absolutely. I hope you guys got some good value out of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Jordan, where does your brain go with everything that we just looked at? Do you have any other questions, thoughts?
No, I mean, as I mentioned before, it's like internal linking, content hubs, even like keyword research, website architecture, content creation. It's what we walk through here. It's really, you're limited by your creativity in terms of application, because there's a ton of insights that you can gather from it. It's what you do with the data that's important.
Yeah, that's exactly the idea that, I'm been preaching, is that it's just the limit is your imagination. And I think I put a bet on the new generation, and I haven't been disappointed. Put a lot of time and effort, and I see how our industry, is getting a lot more credibility. It's getting more, it's amazing. People are really excited about this data stuff. And now we see here and there some BS, studies, we know data to back them up, and making outrageous claims to create controversy and attraction. And people are just, we're seeing that, we don't really care about that stuff. So that's great. I love that. Because before, that was just, the smoke and mirrors was the bulk of the industry and affecting everybody. So excited to see that. Excited to see, and especially when people publish those studies that with lack credibility and making outrageous claims, they become super defensive, and they don't want to be, let's have somebody else reproduce what you're saying, because they don't really care about being truthful. It's more about the attention. But that game of doing that stuff, people already, have seen through it. So I'm excited to see that, because that might benefit some marketer in the short term to be able to create fake studies, right? But it affects the industry because it lacks credibility. Because the problem is when you claim things that, they get you a lot of attention. That's the problem of only focusing on the short term. Yeah, in the short term, it looks like you won because you're getting the attention. Everybody's clapping and everything. Oh wow, that's great. In the long term, you're losing because what you're saying turns out not to be true. And when people try, it doesn't work for them. They don't trust you. So you start losing that credibility. In the long term, doesn't help, which happens also the opposite. When you bet and you push things that eventually might be controversial initially, or people don't even trust you or believe you. But if they turn out to be true, now it's the opposite that happens. People want to follow you. They want to, learn from you. And I rather take that approach than the other ones, because you can get attention both ways. And you've seen that, right? I get a lot of attention. Can complain about it, but I don't have to be making stuff up. Not necessary. And for me, the fact that the industry can see that you can get attention, you can get, in really, really high places. I mean, think about how crazy that is. And I could imagine that I'll have a guest post on the Bing Webmaster blog. Think about who's done that, right? So it's crazy. You didn't think about it, right? And it's better to focus on the credibility, right? And better be wrong and say, look, I might be wrong, but this is it. This is based on the facts that I have. I'm not here trying to make stuff up. It's just that, people start clapping Hamlet, Batista, being a brand out of stuff that it's not real. So yeah, and that's the message and the inspiration that I want the new generation to take, that, credibility is more important.
Couple last questions. Couple last ones, because I know you got to go. Whose work makes you jealous?
Whose Disney's work makes me jealous?
You said Disney?
Yeah, Walt Disney, right?
Yeah.
That is incredible. So I've been following and reading, biographies, and looking at all the stuff they do. The work of Disney is amazing. So many years, getting stronger. Now they're struggling with all this stuff happening, but just looking at, what they've been able to accomplish for so long and getting, better all the time.
Hmm.
I'm amazed that, because look at the legacy he left. How many companies can say that the founder, the creator of the movement died, and 100 years later, the company's just growing stronger,
Right.
with the same basic principles, right? That's, incredible, right? I love that. You could say the same thing with Apple, but I'm really inspired by what I see Disney being able to do, and because I connect a lot with the idea of combining creative with science, because this is what they take the really cutting edge of science with a masterful management of storytelling. Storytelling, narratives are really powerful, driving people emotions. Yeah, that work. The work of Disney. I've been reading all their, with the Disney Plus, they have all these documentaries.
Yep.
I think one is called Imagineering. I've seen that one like 3 times. It's amazing. You should check that one. It's a group within Disney called Imagineers. Mm-hmm. Imagination and engineering combined. That, I love that stuff.
Any of your followers that you want to give a huge shout out to, who you've watched their progress? And I have a couple people in mind, but I'm sure you'll talk about them. Who you've watched?
I mean, Charlie, I've been really impressed with Data Chance. Charlie's been, he's been really on fire.
Yeah.
And I've been, impressed. Yeah. And there's a lot, right?
I've loved seeing the impact you've had on people like Ruth Everett, like watching her Twitter feed, and when she met you in person, like she was all like, she was so lit up, when you two were.
But I'm saying, it's interesting, but I'm saying that, I'm glad that happened, because that put a fire, in them. Totally. Ruth is one who a lot of them has been inspired and said, look, I want to do something that I feel proud of, that I'm really excited about, that I want to learn. And I want to listen to the naysayers. Yep. They say, oh, don't worry about Python and stuff. But what does it matter what somebody else cares about? I want to do what I want to do. I want to learn and want to be able to do really cool stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. No, and Ruth has been speaking and sharing, it's amazing, really, really amazing work.
Cool.
And a lot of them now. Just look at the end of my article. Yeah, I've been giving shout outs to, and that's been a key part of building a community, and not making this about, Hamlet Batista. If it was just about branding Hamlet Batista, it wouldn't be that far, right? But I said, look, I'm 45. I'm not going to be here doing this for long. I want to pass what I know to the new generation, so that I learned all this stuff. It's exciting. I want you to also have fun. Try it out. Might not be for everybody, but some people will try it and they'll find success. Carolyn is also, she did amazing work. She's out of Brazil. Incredible work. Right, Ruth, she's out of Brazil. She's doing that stuff. Danielle, also good stuff. It looks like now people are like, it looks like everybody's doing some Python stuff. Right? And it's because I wasn't the only one, right? I ignited a lot of people, and then Brittany got into Moscon and all these different, they've been preaching this because they see that it's real and it's valuable, right? Brittany Mueller, amazing, right? And I can't wait to see what she's going to do next. Look at Charlie, what she's been doing.
I heard she's going to work with you.
Yeah, let's cross our fingers, right? So that eventually happens, right? But look at that. Incredible, right? in Spanish, English. So it's really cool stuff.
Cool.
And you're next. So I want to see you the next time we talk next year. You're going to be showing me some Python Ninja stuff, okay?
Some crazy stuff. Okay. Let's put it down. It'll happen. Hamlet, thanks for doing round 2 with us. This is amazing.
No, thanks to you.
For your article.
You guys enjoyed it, and you played a little bit with the knowledge graph tool, and take it from there. Excited, guys.
Thanks, Hamlet. Everybody watching, thanks for being a part of this. Jordan, you rock. So glad to have you in my life. Hamlet, thanks again for joining us. Another great Agency Automators episode. Everybody keep automating, keep learning, keep coding, keep it up. Thanks. Peace out, everybody.
Take care. Thanks, Hamlet.